Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Shit's Hard. I'm your host, Amber. And as you can tell from the title, we are getting into the thick of it today. This has been an interesting season, to say the least. New episode, new location. Not really. I'm in the same apartment as last time. I'm just in a different place of the room. Just kind of figuring out my vibe. But I made a promise to myself. I was like, I'm going to keep doing episodes. So I'm going to keep doing episodes. I'm going to keep switching the location, switching the lighting, and figuring out what I like and find my vibe, okay? Also, I got this hibiscus tea from Whole Foods, and it's really not hitting. It doesn't taste like hibiscus. It tastes like rose or something. Anyways, mommy issues, going no contact, and EMDR. Let's get into the thick of it. My family dynamics have been fucked for quite some time, if I'm being quite honest with you guys. But lately they've come to like a head point, like a pinch point, and something's got to give. I feel like part of me when I moved from Ohio to California was running away from that problem. I didn't want to deal with it. I knew that there were family issues, and I think I felt like if I just get as far away from it as I can and I just stay out of it, I'll be good and all will be merry. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Although I do support moving out of your hometown, I do think you can't run away from your problems. Take it from me, they follow you. They always do. So we're talking poor family dynamics today. One of my siblings going no contact with one of my parents, and what does that mean for me? And EMDR and talk therapy. I want to preface this episode with saying, like, I've gone back and forth so many times on whether I want to make this episode. It's obviously a very touchy subject, which isn't the reason that I don't want to talk about it, but this affects people in my life right now. What is my family going to think? What is, I don't really give a shit what other people think. I think other people will get something out of it, which is in reality why I decided to make the episode. So obviously making a video like this, you have to wonder, what is my family going to think? I decided I don't care. I decided this is my story. It's been something that I've had to deal with all 24 years of life and will continue to deal with. And so I want to emphasize this is my side. This is my perspective. This is how I've experienced things. Take it with a grain of salt. Understand that it's only one person's perspective. It's biased inherently. But I just wanted to find an outlet to share my story. And I do think that as somebody who has poor family relations, I feel really good when I see someone on the internet talk about it, talk about their experience with their parents. I feel less alone. Not having a good relationship with your parents can make you feel super isolated, especially when you're around people, if you have friends or your partner or whoever who have a good relationship with their family or a good family dynamic. It can make you feel super alone. So that's kind of also the purpose in me wanting to make this video, was I was like, if there's one other person out there who can get something out of this, who can feel less alone in their family struggles and their family dynamic, then I'm going to make the video, because I think I'm going to get something off my chest, and maybe one of you out there can relate, unfortunately. So, as of late, I've gone back to therapy. I think for me, moving across the country was always the right move in terms of family, because I needed space. Again, you can't run away from your problems, and they have followed me here. However, I've noticed so much in my relationship with not just my family, but friends, potential partners, all of the above. Space is really healthy, and it's hard, especially for anxious people. It's really hard to take space, but space is not, fuck you, I want you to get away from me. It's more, hold on, let me breathe. Let me sit on my own and think with this. Let me get some clarity and know how I want to proceed moving forward. And you need space and you need time to do that. So I think moving across the country was a good move for me. It's given me, my dog is looking at me right now, like, shut this shit off so I can get through this fucking walkway. She's about to knock over my camera for sure. We'll see. Anyways, moving across the country was good. I talk to my family less than probably a lot of people. I don't talk to my mom a lot. I talk to my dad maybe once a week. They really don't know a lot of what's going on with me, what's going on in my personal life, who my friends are. If you listen to the last episode, you know that I moved out of that previous apartment and I moved in with a friend. They don't even really know where I'm staying, or they don't even know the friend I'm staying with. So I'm not upset with them for that by any means, but space has been good. And I think in my journey with my family after graduating college, moving across the country allowed me to get clarity on how do I want to proceed with this relationship, because how it is now is not working for me. It's not healthy for me. I'm not willing to continue as is, but I need the space and time to figure out what is it that I need. How do I move forward? How do we address these issues? So I've started therapy, and not long story short, I'll give you the full story. I'm like trying to find a way out of talking about this. I literally down to like hitting record today. I was like, do I really want to talk about this? Should I just walk on eggshells? But I'm making a promise to myself to be authentic, to tell my side from my perspective. I'm not here to slander anybody or talk shit about anybody. I'm really here to get some things off my chest. My relationship with my mom has been awful since I was born. I don't even know, as long as I can remember. I can't even begin to tell you why. I don't know why. But growing up, I was kind of the target of her madness, and it didn't really fall on my siblings. Of course it hit them a little bit, but even into my adult years, both my siblings have apologized to me for not stepping in, for not doing something about it, for not, protecting me more. In regards to my relationship with my mother, the way that I've perceived it is, I honestly I don't even know how to talk about this. I want to say hostile, but ingenuine is really how I want to go about it. Growing up, she didn't really show up for me. She wasn't at my volleyball games. I would say 12 and going forward was when my dad kind of took over. My parents are still together, by the way. They've always been, but my dad was taking me to orthodontist appointments. He was taking me to volleyball games, practices, if he needed to call off work, if he needed to get a hotel in Columbus so we could stay for my tournament. He was like the primary parent, but really he was like the only parent. My mom didn't go to a game unless it was in town, less than 5 minutes from the house, I would say. Granted, my grandma at this point in time had dementia and she was staying with us and she needed a lot of care, but, I'll let you decide if you think that's a valuable excuse for missing years worth of games. I don't mean like a season, I mean like from 12 to 18 minimum. As I've started therapy recently, I don't have a lot of memories from before 12. This is probably a trauma response. As I've talked more with my therapist, it's common for people who have had a traumatic childhood to block it out in order to cope. And their brain literally shuts off those memories, is like suppress, put them away, and move on. The issue with that is you don't move through them. So they are still there. They're just suppressed. So that's kind of what I'm working on now, is trying to get out of those things. There were little things too. I think a lot of it was probably her absence, just kind of not showing up for me. Again, we lived together. She was there, but she just wasn't interested in me, wasn't interested in raising me. Most of things in regards to me were up to my dad. And I want to emphasize, this was different for my older siblings. My mom did a lot more for them. It seemed like from my perspective, maybe my dad didn't step in enough with my older siblings and she was exhausted, felt tired. And by the time I got to the third one was like, this is your problem. I don't know. I'm 10 years younger than my brother, my older brother. So I can imagine 10 years after you've already raised a kid, maybe you're not so keen on raising another. Obviously, it's possible I was an accident. I don't know. I can only guess. What I've been working on with my therapist is kind of understanding my mom's perspective. I hold a lot of resentment for her, by the way, a lot of anger. I don't feel that I deserved a lot of what happened to me when I was younger. Things like me, I don't know, there was a lot of emphasis. Jesus Christ, this is fucking hard to talk about. I don't even know what you can and can't talk about on Spotify or YouTube, or what words you can't use. Comments about how short my skirts were when I was in private school, how they may come off as a certain way or not. I'll leave you, to make you come to your own conclusion on what that means. Comments, as soon as I was young, I was interested in clothes. I was a very feminine girl. I was into dresses, clothes, and my mom kind of wrote that off as me being materialistic, as I just wanted expensive things. Of course, I always wanted what was the most expensive. I was materialistic. I was greedy. I always wanted more. It was never enough. Those kind of things, I guess. And obviously those stick with you, but it didn't feel true. I didn't think those things about myself. But I was, a 12-year-old girl when Uggs were popular. I wanted the $130 boots or whatever the fuck. There were times where I would have to try on clothes to prove to her that my jeans didn't fit in order to be bought more. It was just not good. When we had interactions, they were never good or positive, and seldom did we. Like I said, as I got older and I got more independent, I immediately was like, I'm getting out. So as soon as I was 16, I had my own car. I was like out of the house all day, every day. And then she'd make comments about that. Oh, you're always gone. You're always at a friend's house. I didn't want to be home. I didn't have a good relationship with my siblings at the time either. Like I said, they were kind of like, don't rock the boat. So they didn't. I was a little more like, what the fuck? This is fucked up. She doesn't have a good relationship with any of her kids. I'll say that much. Any of my family. So I'm just the one who kind of took the brunt when we were kids. And then as I got older, I just was like, fuck this. I became super avoidant. And as soon as I turned 18, I moved out and I was like, I'm not coming back to this. I can't deal with it. As I was growing up, a lot of other things like holding things over my head. So she had paid for college. She had paid for a car. But if we were fighting about something that was unrelated, I don't know, like what time I was going to come home from a friend's house, the threat was always, I'm going to take away her car. Even as I got older, this is crazy how this has persevered. So I would assume it's a control thing. Again, this is my perspective, what I viewed happened. Times where, as I've gotten older, she had paid for my college. And if I wasn't staying in line or acting or doing what she wanted me to do or whatever, she would threaten to stop paying for college. Like after I already graduated and we were paying back loans, or she was paying back loans. And it was like we would be arguing about something that wasn't even related. I don't even remember now, probably some stupid shit. But this past year I needed to purchase a car and my dad couldn't co-sign with me. So I had to use my mom, and I was really disappointed in myself for that because I didn't want to co-sign with her. I have spent a lot of time from 18 to 24 trying to make sure she couldn't hold things over my head anymore. So the college is paid off. She paid that off. I'm getting a new car that her name isn't on. I pay my own bills, my own rent, my own utilities, whatever, my own car insurance. So I didn't want her to be able to take things away from me anymore. So I worked really hard to just try to pay for all my shit on my own. And I was like, you don't have that power move anymore. As we were kids, that obviously worked though. As we're living under her roof, as she's paying for our food, as she was paying for our college, she was allowed to threaten to take things away from us, and we kind of had to oblige, because what else were we going to do? We needed to stay there. We needed to live there. We needed to eat, whatever. So as I've gotten older at this point now, things have shifted. The family dynamic is changing. I left, and I think my sibling Max has taken a lot of the brunt now. So she shifted from me to them. She doesn't like when she doesn't have control, and She just hasn't had control over me ever. And honestly, ever since she hasn't had control over me, like as soon as I started paying my own bills and stuff, we really don't talk much. She really doesn't seem very interested in me, which is fine. I've had my own trauma and issues with that. When I was in college, I had a lot of feelings of, why doesn't she want me? Why doesn't she like me? Why doesn't she want to hang out with me? I'm kind of past that now. I've accepted my reality. And, then after I accepted it, it kind of turned into anger. It kind of turned into, why did you do this to me? Why weren't you there for me in the way that you were supposed to be? I think what hurts a lot is even in my 24 years, she's never really taken any accountability. She's never given a genuine apology. She's never owned up to even minuscule things that she said or done. There was a time when I went to college, for whatever reason, she kind of likes to stir the pot sometimes. She had pulled me aside and told me that when I went to college, that she asked my dad if he wanted a divorce because they were just staying together for the kids, whatever. And I said, what did he say? And she's like, he acted like he didn't know what I was talking about. And I'm 18, 19 in this story. So I'm this isn't my problem. If you guys get a divorce, just get a divorce. It's nothing to do with me. And then my other sibling confronted my dad about that, and he says it never happened. I don't even know what's true. I honestly believe both sides. I could see my mom doing that to him. I could see my dad not wanting to talk to us about that. I could see her making it up. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here is my sibling has been in therapy. Actually, all my siblings have been in therapy, and me. My brother and my sibling Max and then me have all been in therapy, and we've all definitely had to work through these issues in therapy on our own. When we have our own problems with her, right? Mine was more childhood. Max's is a little more probably toward college area to now. So, it's just very complicated. And Max's therapist had kind of, inquired about, she may have narcissistic personality disorder. And about a year ago, I think I made an episode about it that came up within my family. Max was actually on the phone with me telling me this information. I was like, I don't know. I don't really care what it's called. It's a problem either way. My mom had overheard this conversation. At this point in time, I was supposed to be applying for a car loan. I was going to get a new car soon because I was driving a very old car. It was going to break, whatever. She got upset with me for even entertaining the conversation with my sibling Max. And so she had told me that she wasn't going to let my dad co-sign on a car with me. At this point in time, he was going to co-sign with me. Told me he wasn't going to co-sign with me. He wasn't allowed to, I guess, anymore because of that conversation. So that's an example I'll give of why are you taking your shit away from me that she doesn't really have the ability to take away? Obviously, my dad is a good guy. I think he's been there for me my whole life. I think he's genuinely done his best, but he was and still is an enabler. And that's made it difficult and complicated with him because I love my dad. I think he genuinely did the best he could. He's a good dad. He means well. He's always there for me. He's always going to help me out if he can and genuinely cares. But yeah, about a year ago when this stuff came up, my dad had a conversation with me about it and he was very worked up and he was like, family's falling apart, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of is. But for the first time in my life, at 23 years old, I told my dad pretty much everything. I had never really talked to him about this before. I talked to my siblings about it and they were like, yeah, mom doesn't like you. We don't know why. We're sorry, whatever. And we kind of made a bit of a joke growing, as we got older, we were like, whatever, it's funny. Another example would be, she likes to kind of show to the world that we're a good, happy family, but in reality, she doesn't care to put the work in for that to happen. So last December, I was home for Christmas. I was literally packing my bag. Me and my dad are about to go to the airport. We were going to go a couple hours early, get dinner up in Detroit or Toledo, and then I was going to come back to LA. And my mom was on a Zoom call with her boss. And she, she's like, oh, my daughter, she's going back to California today, whatever. Her boss is like, oh, take the rest of the day off, go spend time with your kid, no worries. My mom's like, great, amazing, got the half day. Ends the call. Comes into the kitchen, tells me and my dad that. I didn't say anything. I'm like, cool. My dad's like, oh, would you like to come to the airport with Amber and I? We're going to go up early and get dinner. And we're leaving in 30 minutes or whatever if you want to come with, because your boss just gave you a half day for the purpose of hanging out with your kid. She's like, no, I'm gonna stay home. And me and my siblings are just like, again, this is last year. I'm like 23. So at this point, it's like a joke. It's just like, this is so insane. So then my sibling texts me as I'm on my way to the airport and is like, Mom's just in the living room watching TV. I'm like, okay. Like, what was the purpose in that? Well, like, your boss literally, whatever. I digress. You can make your own conclusions about what you think of that. But that would be a perfect example of she is concerned with what the world thinks of us and our family and being whatever the fuck. In deep down, like in the like behind closed doors is not the case. And she's always been different behind closed doors. So whether it's narcissistic personality disorder, whether it's just deeply rooted trauma, I don't know. I'm not here to diagnose. Obviously, my therapist, my sibling's therapist, they don't know. They haven't, seen her. They cannot diagnose her. That caused a lot of havoc in my family when the word narcissist kind of started swirling around. To me, it doesn't really matter. It's a huge problem, no matter what it is. I don't really care what we name it. It's an issue. And so anyways, that's kind of my story and pretty much my trauma. I can't, there's not really much more other than that on repeat for like 20 something years. Very ingenuine, I will say. Everything is very ingenuine. It got to the point where now if I see my mom cry, I feel nothing. I feel stone cold. And it's an interesting feeling that I've gotten to that point. But I feel nothing because it's been such a show for so long. Everything's been a show. Nothing is real. And so it's like, I don't care when you cry, and I don't care when you tell your boss that you're so sad that your daughter's leaving. You don't give a shit. Either way. All that being said, I'm trying to work through these things now. And I don't have any memories before 12 because a lot of that stuff is suppressed. As a child, this stuff is significantly more difficult to go through. As an adult, like I said, I really realized, especially in my last relationship with my last partner, he helped me come to terms with the fact that she's missing out. She's not interested in you in your life. She doesn't call you to ask about how you're doing. She's missing out. I know it's hard. We all have a need, for our parent to want to be there for us. We want them to care. We want them to be supportive. In college, my college roommates, both of them, and my partner in college, so 3 people very close to me in my life, all their family was also about equidistant from college. So all about 2.5, 3 hours. And it was hard in college. She never really came up to see me. She kind of made excuses a lot of the time if I'd ask. And seeing their family come up, and, my partner's family was just dying to come see him and was like, let me get a hotel for the weekend. Like, she wanted to overstay her welcome because she just wanted to hang out with her kids. And it's just like, it sucks seeing that and feeling jealousy because I don't have that. So it's hard. But I mean, there's been some really good female figures, mother figures in my life who kind of did step in and who have definitely shown me that kind of love, even if it's not blood. I had a friend in high school, Grace. Her mom was just like, I hope to be like her mom. Just her relationship that she has with her mom, the safe space that her mom provides for her kids was really crazy when I was in high school and I saw it firsthand, and I was like, oh wow, her mom really gives a fuck about her. When she cries, she wants to call her mom. And I was like, I don't even know what that's like. But I talked a bit with her mom about this kind of stuff, and even to this day, her mom will comment on my stuff, and I don't talk too much to Grace anymore. I hope she's doing well, but I found it in other people. So I know that it's out there, and I appreciate, other moms who have kind of stepped in and been like, hey, you're not the problem. And that's kind of what I'm working through in therapy is you're not the problem. And that's, if you get anything from this video and you have any mommy issues or daddy issues, you're not the problem, and you never were the problem. And it's hard to get to that conclusion. You're going to have to go to therapy and do a lot of work and really sit with your younger self and see yourself as a kid and understand that you didn't deserve the things that happened to you. What I've been doing with my therapist is understanding my mom's background, understanding her relationship with her parents. She has a sister who has bipolar disorder, pretty bad, drug problems, inability to keep a job. And my grandma didn't really get her the care that she needed. So she had a kid that had needed, way more care. My mom probably didn't get the care she needed, and that fell to the back burner. So maybe that's kind of where this grandiose, like she's always wanting a pat on the back type of thing came from. I don't know. But I do think, my sibling has said, like, well, the reason why doesn't matter because it wasn't your fault. And I can agree with that. But for me, it feels good to know the reason as to why it wasn't my fault. And it's like, oh, she may have had a traumatic childhood. Maybe she really was doing the best she could. And that's a hard thing to come to terms to. If you have mommy issues or a parent that really wasn't there for you, it's so hard. For me, it's so hard to admit that she may have doing the best that she could have. Her best just may have fucking sucked. That's hard. That's hard for me to say because I don't even want to buy it. I spent so much time being resentful and angry and being like, you definitely could have done better. But maybe she couldn't have. Maybe she really gave all that she could, and maybe she's just a product of her parents and her environment as well. So I obviously don't know what happened. I know that her dad was a drunk. I know that her dad drank himself to death when he was like 16. So that's a lot of trauma. And she's never gone to therapy or well, I think she has now in adult life, but those are things you have to work through. And if you don't work through them, they kind of come out in other ways. So I'm working on feeling empathy for her rather than internalizing all her issues and realizing you have your own shit and it's your shit. It's not mine. And it's not a reflection of me. There was never anything wrong with me. You have a lot of shit that you haven't handled and it fell back on me. And that sucks. But I don't want to be angry anymore. It's exhausting. Holding a grudge is so exhausting. Being mad is exhausting. And now, instead of being mad, I've gone through these phases, right? I used to be super sad, internalize it, and I was like, what's wrong with me? And then in college, I kind of got to the point where I was like, fuck you, you're missing out. And then now I feel like I'm at this avoidant stage where I'm like, I just can't deal with this anymore. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to cry. I just don't want to deal with it anymore. Stop. And space is good. Clarity is good. So I've taken the space and I've taken it upon myself to go back to therapy. I've started EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. So I just started today, so I haven't gotten anywhere with it, but it's hard because you're kind of supposed to go back. I think they call it like float back into your memories and kind of like dive into like, where did this place start at, and kind of sit with your younger self and really realize it was not you. Anyways, through this EMDR, you're supposed to be able to actually let go. So instead of repress, you do kind of have to go back, live through it once more, and actually feel it all the way through and move through it and like let it go. So that's what I want to do. It's what I just started today. We'll see how it goes. I've heard mixed things about EMDR. I have a friend who's done it and loved it. I have a friend who's done it and was like, not for me. So we'll see. It's hard though. Questioning yourself, even at this point in time, like, does my mom really love me? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. But I just read a book, and the shit that we're working on this week is how to navigate emotionally mature parents. What I was going to tap on, I don't remember if I said this, but back in August when I did tell my dad everything, he kind of just denied, kind of just was like, that's not true. That didn't happen. That's okay. I can forgive him for that. But obviously that validation would have felt nice. So where I go from here is like, all right, I can only control myself. So, I can try to just see my parents as people and realize that they're very broken people. Maybe they did do the best that they could. I do think my dad loves me. I don't know if my mom loves me. I don't know. I don't know if I love her. It's very complicated. But the book that I just read is called To Be Loved by Frank Anderson. It's a really good book if you're struggling with this kind of stuff because it's kind of like a memoir or an autobiography. I don't know. He's alive. He's not dead. So I don't know what it's called. But it's a story of his life. Starts with his childhood, goes through his college years, goes through his first marriage with a girl, then goes all the way until his dad dies. His dad was his abuser. Long story short, and he kind of gets into like his relationship with his dad, his own trauma, becoming a psychiatrist and an MD himself, becoming a trauma specialist and working through his own shit and really forgiving his dad and being at peace with what happened and letting go, but not necessarily letting them off the hook either. And it's hard. it's hard, but it was a really good book because I don't know, I felt seen and heard by reading it. Another one that I've gotten from a therapist that I have not read is The Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. I've heard those are good. It's like a collection. I haven't read them, but I've heard people have a lot of good things to say about them. So shit I'm wondering this week is, people are really complex. Parents can be good and bad. Oh, one thing I was going to say, in that book, at the end of the book, he talks about his dad's funeral and how so many people showed up and how so many people paid their respects and were like, he was such a good guy. And they came, like, his dad was a pharmacist, and he talks about like the good things that he did for his customers and loaning somebody like $25,000 when they needed it. And I think he kind of expressed, it's like validating to finally come to the conclusion that your parents can do really good things for other people, and maybe other people see them as the hero in their story. And at the same time, simultaneously, your story is just as justified, and the pain that they caused you is not excused, and both can be true. And that's a hard one, because I do think my mom has done good things in her life. She's not all bad, but it's hard to come to the conclusion of, as people, we want black and white. We want good and bad. We want, she's a good person, she's a bad person. It's just not the case. And I'm sure my mom's a hero in some people's story. I'm sure she's an angel, but accountability is important too. And I don't know. In his book, he talks about taking a 7 years no contact from his parents, or maybe no physical contact. He talked to him on the phone. I think it's interesting. I think it makes a lot of sense. And he talks about how much clarity that gave him on how to navigate the relationship going forward. So that's kind of what I'm working on, is how to navigate emotionally immature parents while respecting yourself, and also not holding a grudge and being angry, because that's not helpful. So if that's something that you're struggling with, if you have mommy issues, daddy issues, poor relationship, I'm right there with you. Unfortunately, I didn't really tap into this, but it's kind of literally just occurred. My one sibling is basically going no contact with my mom. And I don't really know what that means for me. I don't know what that means for the rest of the family. I don't know what that means for holidays. I don't blame my sibling. So that's another thing I'm trying to navigate, and I'll probably be putting out more content in regards to that, because it's difficult, and I want to create a safe space here where we can talk about those things. And again, this is just my side. It's my perspective. It's the way that I experience things. So this is not to shit on anybody or make anybody a villain, but just talk about my story, because it fucking sucked and it's super isolating. So I'm really sorry if you are going through anything like that, have gone through anything like that. If you have any words of advice or questions or things that you're struggling with, I'm here. My comments are open, and let's open a dialogue, and let's just, we can have a group support of people with emotionally immature parents. So that's what I got for you guys today. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being my support system. I hope that I offer that back to you in some way. But that is where we will cut it. So thank you for joining me. I'm your host, Amber, and I will see you on the next one, because this shit is hard.